You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
You ever hear of test driving a phone network? Well, US Cellular is letting you test drive their nationwide 5G for free. Try out US Cellular wherever you have spotty service, your commute to work, that one spot in your house where your service dips. It's as easy as doing a little beep boop pop boop pop with your phone. That's the buttons, that's the noise they make. Anyways, test drive US Cellular's nationwide 5G coverage for free for 30 days. Just download the Try Us app. US Cellular, built for us. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com/try us.
You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Text us, 865-658-5824. As of right now, flying solo. The guys probably out date mocking it up. I'd say everybody's getting rested up for these camp battles that are coming up, as well as training camp will get kicked off on Monday, obviously. So really excited to just hop in here and talk a little Packers. We've got a couple topics we want to hit on. Specifically, Jordan Love is going to be a big topic this evening, as there were some rumors, and I do the air quotes, on purpose. There were some rumors that were swirling earlier this morning, dropped at about 2 a.m. last night, that the Packers were closing in on a contract with Jordan Love for $280 million, 5 years, $280 million. Now, do we know if that's real or not? I have no idea. Again, I just tweeted it out and just said, hey, look, what do you guys think about the rumors? How would you feel about that contract, those totals? So we'll hit on that just a bit as well, because since then, I think it was Jeremy Fowler came out and kind of simmered down everything for just a second. So we'll kind of dive into all that. Just want to give a shout out to people in the chat real quick. We got Omer in the house. Good to see you, buddy. M. Smitty. We got Kevin Rogers. Appreciate y'all joining us here. Not expecting a big crowd, as this is a glorious Saturday evening. I'm sure there's UFC stuff going on this evening, which I'm a big fan of myself. So I'm going to hop off here when we wrap up and actually watch some of that. But let's just kind of dive into some of the things that I came across today. And we're going to talk some contracts too on the backside if we have time. All right. So that's going to be the goal anyway. So let's just jump right into it. So you guys know, we mentioned before, Pretty Ricky 213 on Twitter. I think he refers to himself as the People's Insider. You remember back June 14th, he said, after the Trevor signing, all eyes are now on Dak, Tua, and Jordan Love. Who tops the market next? I'm hearing the Packers are racing to get a deal done with Jordan Love before quarterback prices go up. Sounds like Packers want to get the deal done before Tua and Dak sign. I apologize for the dog barking. We got an upset pup downstairs. I don't know what his problem is, but he'll get over it. So he tweeted that out. And the reason we mention it, his Twitter account blew up because he nailed several different contract drops, right? Like, so it seemed like right before news would break, he would tweet it out and it would come to fruition. And many people were going, who the heck is this Pretty Ricky 213? So we still don't know who the guy is. Again, I love his sense of humor. He's always saying that he's the People's Insider. It could be someone in a building somewhere. It could be a burner account for one of these inside. Who the heck knows, right? But nonetheless, when he tweets stuff out, it kind of gets your attention. Well, it was actually Robert, a loyal listener here of PTA, shot me a text message and said, hey, Clayton, did you see Pretty Ricky's tweet? So on July 18th, which was 2 days ago, you'll notice here on this screen grab on the screen, for those of you on the pod, he replied to that tweet from June 14th and just simply put a handshake and a cheese emoji. So what does that mean? I don't know. But if it was anyone other than Pretty Ricky 213, I would go, all right, somebody's just trying to get attention. Kind of makes me think a large portion of the structure of the contract's in place and they're just buttoning some stuff up. Again, I have no legitimate sources that prove that. I can't imagine anyone has legitimate sources that disproves that, seeing that Jeremy Fowler had the tweet that he had earlier as well. Now, I do want to give a shout out to Badger Trio, one of the listeners, because he immediately responded with this. Only one man can answer this question. and of course, it's the cat that said, you know, you've got Favre that'll take you to the Super Bowl, and you got Rodgers that'll take you to the toilet bowl. right? Actually, do we have that sound drop? Let's see if we still got that. If we do, we got to hit that once. We may have gotten rid of it. I think we did. I had to do some cleaning. Oh, here we go. We got it.
Rogers, who the only place he's going to take you to is the toilet bowl. And then you got Brett Favre, who will take you to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just saying, we're not going to talk about it.
So just love the Badger Trio threw that in there earlier. That's great entertainment for sure. But back to the topic at hand here with Jordan Love. You know, who knows what's real and what isn't at this point. I will say that I put a poll out, right? I wanted to kind of gauge Packer fans' interest in, hey, how do you guys feel about a 5-year, $280 million contract? Now, we got really good results on this, by the way, but we had a couple of people. It never fails. Anytime you put a poll out, there's one or two knuckleheads that want to respond with a smart aleck comment like, who cares, right? Well, you cared enough to comment on the tweets. All I got to say. If you don't care, you just keep scrolling. The fact that you commented really says that you care. But there was other people that kind of said, hey, well, the structure is what's going to matter. I completely agree. This is just a very broad conversation piece here. Okay, so the tweet that I put up, I said, rumors are swirling that Green Bay quarterback Jordan Love is close to signing a 5-year contract worth $280 million. Packers fans, which of these best describes how you feel if, in all caps, if it is true? All right. So the options were he deserves more, that's too much, that's just right, or he's not the guy. Okay. That's just right ran away with the poll here. And we had, at this time that I took the screen grab, we have 1,323 votes. Okay. 65.2% said 5 years, 280 million, probably right there in the ballpark. That sounds about right. In second place was that's too much at 22%, saying, no, that's a little too rich, right? Number three, or third place, I should say, was he deserves more. So 11% of the fans that voted on this poll are saying Jordan Love deserves more than a 5-year contract worth $280 million. That one probably caught me by surprise the most. I expected some to say that's too much. I expected the majority to say that's just about right. But then, of course, we have 1.8% that said he's not the guy. So that 1.8% is probably a couple Bear fans, I would imagine. But nonetheless, that's kind of how the poll drops. So I want to hear what you guys think in the comments here, and I'll try to keep up with them. It's just so hard when we're flying solo like this to read the comments and not have dead air. But how do you guys feel about that specific contract there, that potential or possible, I should say, contract, 5-year contract worth $280 million, just the structure of it? Do you feel like that's too much? Is that right about in the ballpark? Do you think he deserves more, or do you think he's not worth it? I'd love to hear your all's take on that for sure. So this is what's crazy too. Shortly after, like, NFL Rumors tweeted that out, a couple other people tweeted that out. Then we had this come down the pike, where it was in an article on ESPN.com, and I just tweeted out, now Jeremy Fowler reports the Packers and Jordan Love's contract, quote, isn't considered close. All right, so it isn't considered close. It says appearing on Sports Center starts at the 3:20 mark because there was a video attached. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, we would play the video, but you guys know how that goes here on YouTube. We want to play it as safe as possible here. It says ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported Love and the Packers have had, quote, positive contract talks, but a deal isn't considered close at this point. Now, where did that come from, right? We talk about the insiders all the time, and where are they getting information from? That's the big question. So me personally, I feel like a large majority of the time when your Jeremy Fowlers, your Ian Rappaports, your Adam Schefters, when they put information out, especially with contracts, because you'll notice the contracts that get reported are these just overinflated numbers, and then immediately everybody goes to the guaranteed and practical guarantees of the contract. That tells you kind of the whole story, right? Most of the time, I would venture to say 85, 90% of the time, this information is being leaked out from the players' camp. So the fact that this news kind of, I don't want to even call it news, but the rumors started dropping that, hey, they're close to a 5-year, $280 million deal. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like almost immediately after, Jeremy Fowler comes out and says, hey, they've had positive contract talks, but the deal isn't considered close at this point. If Jordan Love's camp is trying to extract a little bit more out of the Green Bay Packers, Don't you think this is the message they would want to send to the fans and to get out in the public eye? Like, hey, look, no, calm down. It's not really considered close at this point. Because now the front office of Green Bay, they read that in the headlines and it's, dang, we need to get this done, right? So it's almost like the first report that dropped was simply saying, hey, we're real close on this. And then the second report is, we've had positive talks, but we're not really that close. So it kind of feels like the Packers are putting some information out through people. And then the obviously Jordan Love's camp is putting some information out through people. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of the way I see that, just from a very broad viewpoint, broad perspective, I guess you could say. So let's see here if we can just glance through the chat real quick. Let's see. M. Smitty says, I was okay with five at 280 million if that is what it comes out to. You know, that's the problem, right, Smitty? Like, we talked about this before Jared Goff signed his deal. It's like, get this deal done. Let's get it done. Because at the time, the top dollar for quarterbacks would have been a lot lower. Well, every time you wait and another quarterback signs a new contract, and I know you guys know this, it's just in case there's one or two people out there that don't understand this. When the new contract drops on a quarterback and they reset the market, guess what? Jordan Love's number goes up, and it goes up again, and it goes up again. That's what's happened. So it's like, looking up now, if we are looking at 5 years, 280 million, you really, really wish we would have just went ahead and pulled the trigger when Jared Goff signed his, or right before Jared Goff signed his contract, if that makes sense. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of how I see that. Let's see. Ron Samble in the chat says 5 at 280 is perfect if they are after this year. I'm not sure what that after this year means, but yeah, it sounds like he agrees with the 280. So there you go. All right, cool. Rock Cod Deadfish says, what's going on? And let's see, Kevin Rogers says, what does that even mean? Nothing really exciting happening in sports until training camp starts. It's a good point. It's a good point, man. It does get boring out here this time of year. Let's see here. All right, cool. Rock Cod over here manipulating the system said, at least I was able to get to do 2 likes. Winky emoji. Appreciate that, man. Anything helps for sure. So, all right. So that's kind of what's going on with Jordan Love, the tale of two camps, right? Who knows which one is more accurate than the other? I feel like it's probably someone in the Packers camp sending some info out first. And then I wouldn't say it's a shot across the bow, but someone from Jordan's camp sent word through Jeremy Fowler like, hey, they need to slow down on this and making it sound like the deal's done, right? Because the reality is the team tries to put public pressure on the player, and the player tries to put public pressure on the team, right? When you're in a negotiation like this where there's, I don't know if I'm sure there's millions. Maybe there are, maybe there isn't. However many fans of Green Bay there is worldwide, when you kind of sway their opinion in your favor, you really do put pressure on the other negotiating side, right? I personally like contract negotiation talk. I think it's fascinating. Anybody who's had any kind of history in business, you know, it's kind of the lifeblood of business is just understanding when to cut your losses, understanding how to negotiate, and to do not just what's right for right now. And in some cases, you know, you got what we call rabbits in business, where it's like, hey, we just need to focus on getting a whole bunch of rabbits, hunting a whole bunch of rabbits, right? Put that food on the table. And then you've also got your elephants, right? Like this big game, hey, if we land that account, if we land that business, man, we're set for a while. The problem is if that goes away, your income goes away, right? So when you're hunting rabbits, it's like the more rabbits you got on the table, then you're a little less stressed about losing a majority of your business. So I just love the way the contractual aspect of the NFL kind of ties in with just everyday business. I love it. I really do. So when we're talking contracts and going into, you know, the training camp portion of the season here, the other thing that's really getting worked now that everybody's back in the building, everybody meaning Brian Gutekunst and his team, they're now looking at the future contracts going, okay, who do we want to bring back, right? Who do we want to bring back next year? So when you kind of dive into that, here are the contracts that are going to be expiring in 2025. Okay, so these are the players whose contracts will be up after this year. Some are restricted, some are exclusive rights free agents. We just kind of consider those guys as they'll be back, because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, a restricted free agent signs with the team that puts the tender on them. Well, let's just start at the top here and talk about the players who may or may not be back with Green Bay next year. Now, Kenny Clark is at the top of the list. Obviously, we've talked about him quite a bit. His previous annual average was $17.5 million. Now, some people hear that and they go, wait, Clayton, he's $27 million against the cap this year. That's just because of how it was structured. If you averaged it out, that's what it was. Okay, so Kenny had talked about they're already in contract negotiations. So they're trying to get a deal done there. The question is he willing to take a team-friendly deal? And I'm not talking about a veteran minimum by no stretch of the imagination, just something that's simply, hey, a 3-year deal, which we all know would simply be a 2-year deal. Can we get it at a decent price where, hey, Kenny gets to stay here for another 2 to 3 years where he wants to be? He's been very vocal about that. Or do you try to get really aggressive and then let him test the market? I think that's a possibility too. But, again, the reality is he's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 this year. And when you look at that age, there's very few players that once they crack 30 outside of the quarterback position, do they get better? I'm not saying that they don't exist. They're just few and far between. When it comes to the defensive lineman and one who's played the amount of snaps that Kenny has, because that has been one of the positives of Kenny Clark, is just him being able to stay healthy and stay on the field. He came in the league really, really young. I want to say he had just turned 20, or maybe he was even 19. Then he turned 20. It was something crazy when he got in the league. Really, really young. So he's got 8 years of experience, if I remember correct. Yeah, I think that's what yeah, there you go. So years of experience, that YOE. So he's got 8 years of experience, guys. That's, put it this way. There's an age factor and then there's a wear and tear factor, right? We all understand that. So if 30 is the usual kind of, I don't want to say drop off, but when those guys kind of hit that wall a little bit, right? And most rookies come in the league at 23 years old. Well, they hit that wall at 7 years, right? Kenny may not be 30 years old yet, but he's already got 8 years of experience. So he's kind of got the wear and tear of a normal 30 or a 31-year-old, if that makes sense. So, or maybe a little bit more, I should say, than a normal 30 or 31-year-old. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. The positive news there is they have been talking contract already. So hopefully they get that done. Number 2 on the list is Jordan Love, right? Obviously his average annual was $13.5 million. He signed that. You guys heard me report it on here. I felt like it was a very, very team-friendly deal when he signed that little 2-year extension. He could have held their feet to the fire, made them hit him with a 5th-year option, or let him test the market, because that's really what it came down to. They were going to have to make a decision. Do we put a 5th-year option on him? And if you guys remember, Brian Gutekunst's exact words were, that's a lot of money to pay someone who hasn't played much, right? So there's some signs kind of pointing to they might let him test the market. If he'd have tested the market, you know how the market goes. Look at the wide receiver position and the quarterback position. So the fact that Jordan was willing to take a 2-year deal, right, kind of patch it in there and bridge the gap to basically what Jordan said was, okay, you want to see what I got? I'll show you what I got. And the first half was booty cheeks. Second half was just elite, like elite, elite, elite. So the fact that Jordan was willing to bank on himself and then sign that team-friendly extension there, when we all know the 5th-year option was going to be significantly more, and we all know that if he had signed a larger contract there, he would have kind of held their feet to the fire. I think if the Packers had known what they know now going into that contract negotiation, they probably would have went ahead and gave him an extension that, to the tune of, 35, 40 million per year. Jordan may have signed it, right? But then when Jordan comes out and plays like the best quarterback in the league for the last 9 games last year, man, that's when you start inflating those numbers, right? He really gave himself a huge raise in that regard. But I do want to acknowledge, like I said, that I felt like, and I could be wrong, you guys may completely disagree, and who's to say I'm right and anyone else is wrong. I felt like Jordan did the team a favor by signing that 2-year extension. That's why I'm so adamant on, like, hey, let's get this done. It's why I was so adamant on getting it done before Jared Goff signed his contract and then before Trevor Lawrence. For that very reason, like, this dude has done everything right. He sat behind Aaron for several years, kept his mouth shut, didn't rock the boat, didn't ask to, be the starter. He just came in, learned his craft, studied under Tom Clement. You got, I'm studying under Aaron, and Aaron was talking about how he was just a great teammate, a great guy, and vice versa. And then he gets his opportunity. he signs that little week 2-year extension, team-friendly deal. Then he goes out and plays like the best quarterback in football the second half of the season, albeit just the second half. And I understand, like I said, I understand the hesitation on Gutey's part too, right? Because that first half was ugly. Second half was immaculate. So, aside from the fourth quarter interception against the Niners, which, it is what it is. It was pretty much a downpour, right? I remember watching that game too. Oh my gosh. I remember watching that playoff game, and as soon as Brock Purdy went down and scored, and I knew the Packers were going to have a chance to go down and win the game with Jordan Love, I literally, this is the geek I am. I pulled up the Weather Channel app, went to San Francisco, and sure enough, projected the next 15 to 20 minutes, right, of weather. And I seen that dark green blimping up, and I went, oh, no. Sure enough, man, it was as soon as the Packers got on the field, there came the rain. So you got to take that into consideration too. Now Jordan has larger hands than both Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers did, and that's really going to help you in ball grip and being able to play in the weather, in the elements, in the rain. Same time, man, that's not an easy drive to make. Fourth quarter, divisional playoffs, in the pouring rain, on the road against the second best team in the league. You know what I'm saying? So I try not to hold that fourth quarter interception against Jordan, although it was more of a mental mistake than anything, right? Throwing it out. I think he threw it on first down across his body, if I remember right. Those are things that Gutey's mentioning at the negotiating table too, I guarantee it, and rightfully so. So we'll see what happens with Jordan, but obviously he's second on this list. The next one is Eric Stokes. Now, really tells you a lot about what they think of Eric Stokes, the fact that they did decline that fifth-year option. There's nothing that general managers love more than to either sign an extension.
You ever hear of test driving a phone network? Well, US Cellular is letting you test drive their nationwide 5G for free. Try out US Cellular wherever you have spotty service, your commute to work, that one spot in your house where your service dips. It's as easy as doing a little beep boop pop boop pop with your phone. That's the buttons, that's the noise they make. Anyways, test drive US Cellular's nationwide 5G coverage for free for 30 days. Just download the Try Us app. US Cellular, built for us. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com/try us.
Sign the fifth-year option, or sign the fifth-year option, then get the extension done and just void out the fifth-year option, right? Like there's nothing that GMs want more than to do that with their draft picks, because that's saying, yep, I hit on my guy, right? There's some GMs that do that type of stuff with their first-round picks and second-round picks and even third-round picks to try to justify the job, try to keep their job. The fact that Gutey was willing to go, hey, we're going to go ahead and decline that and let's play this season out, man, just shows you he's all business. So with Eric Stokes here, he's playing for his next contract. So you should get the best version of Eric Stokes. He's 26 years old. He's got 3 years of an experience now. His average annual has only been $2.9 million, but I think we would all agree between the injuries and, in my opinion, I feel like he's underperformed. There's still a lot of people that think he's played great. Now, I haven't seen it. His rookie year was, I wouldn't even say good. I would say it's above average, like, okay, usually when you grade out in the 60s as a rookie, kind of like LVN this year, you're like, oh, okay, this guy can play at this level. Now let's build on that. Let's build some momentum. Let's just hone in on your craft and take that next step and get into the 70s, get into the 80s. And whether you're following PFF or, Sports Information Solutions and their point system, which is something the 33rd team, former executives, former coaches, former players like to use as kind of their basis for information. Everyone across the board all agreed, Eric Stokes is underperformed. You throw the injuries on top of it, it's like, okay, you got to go out and prove it this year. So that's a contract. I'm just wondering, again, we're talking about this because we're on training camp eve here. Everything's about to get kicked off. And you kind of sit back and go, I wonder which contracts they're seriously having negotiations on. Kenny Clark, we know they are. Jordan Love, obviously, we know they are. You haven't heard anything about Eric Stokes, right? Not that we have to hear it for it to be true, but it kind of feels like they're going to wait until the end of the season to approach Stokes. Now, they may surprise us. They kept it under wrap, and in a week or two, Stokes gets an extension. That could happen. I guarantee you, if he does get an extension, it's going to be significantly less than that fifth-year option. Right? Because that's the whole purpose of that, to be able to, okay, let's be able to tack on 2 to 4 years so we can manipulate the cap a little bit and structure it in a way that it kind of molds around this deal we're going to have to sign with Jordan and potentially Kenny Clark too. But yeah, so I think Eric Stokes is one to kind of keep an eye on. Although I think personally, unless he just balls out in the first couple of weeks of the season, or he has a fantastic camp, maybe that's the other thing nobody's taking into consideration. Like there's some podcasters and some football fans that are like, training camp's so boring, it doesn't really mean anything. The hell it doesn't. Like these practices that they're putting on film, these front office executives, the scouts that's doing the self-scouting, the coaches, they're watching that practice tape like hawks. So if Eric Stokes comes out in camp and all of a sudden, bang, he's healthy, and man, this dude looks like he took that next year leap we expected him to after his rookie year, that might be enough to get Gutey to go, hey, you know what? Just step into my office. Let's negotiate a little bit. So that could happen. Next on the list is A.J. Dillon. He's now 27 years old, obviously running back, mayor of Door County. His average annual has been $2.7 million. He's got 4 years of experience. At 27 years old, you don't see a 4-year deal if they were going to try to re-sign him. Also, the fact that they used that really, really rare tender, whatever it was, tag they used on him, which is essentially they're on the hook for nothing. They could cut him and miss out on nothing if I understand correctly. But it allows them to get him at under $3 million this year. So with A.J. Dillon, I don't see a contract extension there unless his agent sat down with Gutey and said, hey, look, give us a 4-year deal at $2 million per, $3 million per. Gutey might do that, especially if the guarantee is low too. I just think as much as AJ loves the area, that would be a really tough look for AJ, right? It'd be hard to you may love the area, and I know his wife's from, the Green Bay surrounding area. But man, you've got to put food on the table, right? I love AJ Dillon as a person. It sucks that last year in a contract year, he had arguably his worst year of his career. That's always tough. So hopefully he'll put it together and battle Marshawn Lloyd for that number 2 spot. And it would be really cool to see AJ Dillon get back to that 2021 form, right? 2022 form, and come out and just play at a little bit higher level, right? Next on the list is one of my darlings, Corey Ballantyne. The problem is he's 29 years old. I sound like Leo DiCaprio in here. Corey Ballantyne being 29 years old, you guys know after we went back and watched everything, I think I watched every snap last year a total of 5 times. That's the most I've ever watched Green Bay Packers football since I've been alive, since I've been a Packer fan, since 2003. I've been alive a lot longer than that. Some people are going to claim you're older than that. I know, trust me. But I became a Packer fan in 2003. I didn't have a pro team and went to Lambeau one time and said, yep, these are my people. So, with Corey, it's like Corey Ballantyne, it's like 29 years old. After I watched all the tape last year, I felt like he was our second best corner. And if you're going, man, I didn't see it like that, Clayton, turn me on to a game where I can see it. Go back and watch him play the Vikings in Minnesota and watch him shut down Justin Jefferson. Now, he wasn't following him, but there was a significant amount of snaps where Justin Jefferson was running routes on him, and they tested him deep a couple of times on the left sideline too. I'm pretty sure it was Jefferson, but there might have been a couple that he got tested deep and it wasn't Jefferson, but Ballantyne got him a tip pick there in that game. And then on top of that, the dude he played lights out. It was arguably his best game of the year. So you can go watch that. Now, like I said, 29 years old, what does that contract extension look like? Right. If they come out this year and Eric Stokes wins the number 2 corner job, which I think many people, including the Packers, want him to do that, then what's going to happen is Corey Ballantyne, I don't think he would be a legitimate contender for backup slot corner. But if it's a crowded DB room and Stokes and Jair are fully healthy, maybe they do go that route, right? But as it sits right now, you kind of see Keyshawn Nixon, and we're all projecting. We don't know if it's going to come to fruition or not, but Javon Bullard playing in the slot. But if Ballantyne can show that he's got added value in the slot, if he can't do that and Eric Stokes wins that number 2 cornerback job and Keyshawn Nixon's going to be playing nickel, that means Ballantyne's going to be on the bench quite a bit. And if that's the case, he probably won't have a large market in free agency. So it might be something where they let him test the market and bring him back on a minimum, right? That's kind of what it feels like to me. Next on the list for 2025 free agents going into camp here, Josh Myers. This one kind of scares me a little bit. Obviously, he's 26 years old, second-round pick. Average annual has only been $1.3 million. But him being an unrestricted free agent, kind of going into next offseason, I don't want to sound like an a-hole here, but I'm a little bit worried that they are trying to get a deal. You know what I mean? We haven't heard that, but at the right price, maybe. I've been very vocal about Josh Myers. He's an athletic freak. He's a stud in that regard. He's 6'5", whatever, 320 pounds. He moves like a cat. He can get to the second level. When you go double-double duo, or you're going inside zone and he's working a double to the Mike or a double to the Sam or the Will, like, he's got all of the physical tools to do it. But it's almost like how he arrives at the block at the second level. He just seems to miss more than he hits. And, his big claim to fame up to this point has been that he's a really good pass blocker. And last year, if I remember correctly, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he took a step back in pass blocking last year as well, right? So that's one that kind of, I'm worried that whole thing that we talked about where, hey, this was our second round pick. We look really bad if we just let him walk in free agency and he wasn't the guy. We say all the time on the show, and it's a Michael Lombardi-ism. It's Bill Belichick 101. The only thing worse than making a bad draft pick is refusing to acknowledge that you made a bad draft pick. So there might be a little bit of that where Gutey says, hey, look, he's got all the physical traits and tools. Let's give him a deal. It just better not be top center money, right? So I'm in the camp of Josh Myers, very team-friendly deal, or just let him walk in free agency. And what I'm really, really, really in favor of, let me say it one more time, really in favor of, is an open competition at center. Because that just irks the hell out of me. That it's like, oh, nope, Josh Myers is the center and there's no competition. And then we see him get into the season and it's like, man, he wasn't horrible. I wouldn't say that Josh Myers has been horrible, but he definitely hasn't been good. I would say he's average to below average at the center position, probably below average. That's tough because that's an important position. It's the second most important position on the offensive line, in my opinion. Some people would say left tackle, right tackle, then center. And I know scheme comes into this a lot. If you like to run a lot of weak side zone, your left guard is really, really important, right? Because most of the time you're going strong right. You'll run a little weak zone left. You'll get them overloaded to the right, or run a little counter play with a little Y sift. Like I understand that a guard, it can be explained and you could probably be sold on, hey, look, no, the guard position in this specific offense, not necessarily Matt LaFleur's, but any specific offense, like, hey, no, guard's actually more important than center. I understand that sentiment, but for me, man, it goes left tackle, center, then right tackle. That's how I see it in order of importance with a right-handed quarterback. And the reason being is, like you see, Love he can keep an eye on that rusher on his face side, right? From the left defensive end, from the defense's perspective, the guy who's rushing against the right tackle, he can see that guy, see him set up his move, let him wash himself out of the play, step up in the pocket, slide out, manipulate the pocket, and avoid that pressure. You can't do that from the backside, right? From the left tackle position. So that's why I simply say center, helping set the protection, getting the guys in a position to set up the blocking scheme appropriately, to be able to help the guards when need be. All those things I think is more important than right tackle. Now, like someone like Tua Tagovailoa, who's in Miami and he's a lefty, you just flip it. Right tackle is most important. Then it'd be center, then left tackle. That's just kind of how I see it. Now, I think we would all agree most NFL teams disagree with what I just said because people pay right tackle a lot of money, right? So, yeah. So, that's a good point here. Let's see what Deadfish says. He says, we let Corey Linsley go. I'm thinking we're going to let Myers go, especially since we have Jenkins, Tom, and maybe Monk to step in. That's a great point. They did kind of let Corey walk, and I think we all hated the fact that they let him walk, right? But Corey Linsley was a good center. Josh Myers is kind of underperformed, right? So, yeah, I see what you're saying, Deadfish. It's a good point. All right, let's move along here. Eric Wilson, boy, I know what the chat's going to say about Eric Wilson. Give that dude a little extra guaranteed money, man. That's the guy where we need him on this roster until he can't play football anymore because he's a special teams stud. He's Mr. Hustle. He's actually played pretty well when he's had to fill in at the linebacker position, albeit a that 34 jam, and then, of course, our nickel 4-2-5, which should be very similar to Jeff Hafley's nickel as far as structure and formationally, deployment from that standpoint. Scheme-wise, it's going to change quite a bit, obviously. But Eric Wilson, 30 years old, they're not going to sign him to an extension. They're going to let him test the market, and then they'll probably just match that offer if he doesn't fall off this year, right? So that's kind of how I see Eric Wilson, pretty straightforward. Greg Joseph, kicker, he's 30 years old. The reality, too, with Greg Joseph, his numbers weren't better than Anders Carlson last year, if I remember correctly. Now, what's his claim to fame? He hit a few game winners in 2022, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was 2021. I think it was 2022 for the Vikings. So he's got some clutch ability to him. But overall, when you look at his product on the field, he statistically was worse than Anders Carlson, if I remember correctly. So for me, I think Greg Joseph, it's an opportunity to try to win that starting job. I don't think he's the long-term answer. If Greg Joseph, let me paint a picture here. If Greg Joseph comes out in training camp and he absolutely lights it up and he smokes Anders Carlson's head in the camp battle, I could see them putting Anders Carlson on the practice squad and keeping Greg Joseph, and then letting Rich Bisaccia continue to work with Anders Carlson. And then next year, if Greg Joseph goes to test free agency, or maybe midway through the season, Anders has got everything, all the kinks worked out, because he's got a phenomenal leg. I mean, he's got some of the best leg talent we've ever seen in the league. Like he's got an absolute cannon for a leg. The problem is in key situations, and specifically with extra points, with it being pushed back now, that's where he tends to struggle. So I could see it being, there's a slight chance that it plays out that way, that Greg Joseph could win the job, stash Anders Carlson on the practice squad, and then at the end of the year, if Anders fixes it, you activate Anders back on the roster. That will reset his contract to a 2-year deal, and you're only missing out on 1 year of contract. What's the right word I'm looking here? Rights to that player, to Anders Carlson, if that makes sense. So I could see that being a slight chance, but honestly, if I had to put money on it right now, I would say Anders Carlson wins that job. That's just me personally. Next is Christian Welch, linebacker, 28 years old. You're going to let him test the market, no doubt about it. That's not someone that you're going to go and try to work a deal out right now. He's not on the table with Gutey, trying to work out a deal here before camp. Andre Dillard, same thing. He's 29 years old. They're not looking to extend him by no stretch of the imagination. Same thing with Tyler Davis, I don't believe. Robert Rochelle, 27 years old, probably going to let him play it out. Zane Anderson, let him play it out. Royce Newman, let him play it out. Royce, who knows though, man? Royce might get cut, right? He's got 3 years in the league now. They're not looking at him now going, maybe he'll put it together this year, right? Probably highly unlikely the Packers are looking at Royce Newman that way. Next on the list would be, I've lost my place here, Caleb Jones. Caleb Jones, only 26 years old. Now, this is interesting. Caleb Jones is a restricted free agent. I expect Caleb Jones to be back. They'll probably slap a little tender on him, and I don't think a team will give up a draft pick for him, me personally. So I think there's a good chance Caleb Jones comes back, especially the fact that he's 26 years old. One thing about Caleb, he knows the system, right? He's been here long enough. He better know the system, right? So that's one to kind of keep an eye on there for sure. Yeah. So it looks like Rumble's leading the way tonight. That's awesome, guys. Everybody watching in the Rumble, pretty darn cool, man. Pretty darn cool. Love it. I see the chat's lighting up too. I'm going to try to get to some of those here in just a second. Let me mark a few as I uncomfortably try to filibuster here so I can read them. Man, that's a hard thing to do. Speak out loud and read these comments, man. Let's see here. Last one. All right, cool. Next on the list is to Daryl Slayton, TJ Slayton. I think you got to let him test the market, right? And I think there's a chance they bring him back once he tests the market. It's a big old dude, man. That's somebody, Chris Nichols. Rumble is the future, Clayton. Yes, sir, it is. I tell you, man, I can't lie. When we're live on Rumble and not YouTube, my anxiety level is way, way lower. Way lower. Disabled the chat. How did the chat get disabled in YouTube, man? I did not disable the chat, so There you go. That's really interesting. Holy cow. I don't want to say what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say what I'm about to say. I guess YouTube disabled the chat. Yeah. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, man, I tell you, they make it so difficult to want to do business with them. All right. So, Emmanuel Wilson, exclusive rights free agent. Good chance they'll bring him back. Daniel Whelan, exclusive rights free agent. Bring him back. I am so happy with Daniel Whelan and how he's performed. He completely fixed the holding issue. Now, we got a little bit of a snapping issue, not nothing horrible like it was before to the tune of 2020, right? But only some people are disabled on YouTube. What in the world is going on? Why does life have to be this difficult? Only some people are disabled on you. So some people are not allowed to comment on YouTube in our chat. What? Oh my God. Okay. So Daniel Whelan, he's only 26 years old. I would like to see them sign him to a 4-year deal. That's just me personally. Now, I don't think he's going to hit the market and have this huge market for him. But if you were to sign him to a 4-year deal and like guarantee maybe $2 million of it, like let's say you go $4 million at 1.5 per. So that would be what, a $6 million deal, guarantee $2 to $3 million of it, and you're set, right? You're set. So that would be absolutely awesome. That's a good point too. M. Smitty says, Ron, I'm wondering if it's related to some of the issues with CrowdStrike and being regional. So yeah, who knows? Next is Jonathan Ford, defensive tackle, 26 years old. He really hasn't shown anything. He is an exclusive rights free agent though. So they'll probably bring him back and continue to try to stash him on the practice squad because he is a big body defensive tackle, kind of that traditional nose tackle. Zion Gilbert, safety, 26 years old. They obviously seen something in him. He's an exclusive rights free agent. I expect him to be back. Aaron Mosby, same thing. Alex Magoo, same thing. Let me make sure who this last year. Here we go. Isaiah McDuffie. I almost didn't hit the last two. Holy cow. Isaiah McDuffie is 25 years old, and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. If you could get him at a decent contract, I don't think he would settle for a minimum contract, nor should he. They'll probably let him test the market. But that's one of those tweeners for me. Like, I don't know what the going rate is for like, middle of the road, middle linebackers. We've seen that kind of spark up quite a bit this year. Bobby Wagner got a lot more money than we expected. And these are starting caliber linebackers. If you could go in and get McDuffie for like $3 million per, I think that would be money well spent. What about a 4-year deal worth $12 million, $3 million per, and guarantee 6 of it, something like that. Now, would he take that? I don't know. But the fact that he contributes on special teams, and in my opinion, I'm just going to say it, in my opinion, he was our best linebacker last year. And I know that's going to like blow some people's hair off. But, man, Quay played great in spurts. But I'm just not sold on Quay yet. And I say this all the time, man. I got the autographed jersey on the wall here. As a person, that dude is phenomenal. Like him at a Braves game, hanging out with some fans. The tweet he sent out saying, "Hey, anybody in Green Bay got a boat? I want to go fishing." Like that's my kind of cat right there. This dude's as country as cornbread, and you can tell his teammates love him. But the reality, in my opinion, is outside of the Chicago Bears game week 1, Isaiah McDuffie played more consistent than him. He darn sure played more consistent than Devondre Campbell, especially down the stretch when he was throwing his little hissy fits. I'd like to see McDuffie back. Out of all these, other than the top, 4 or 5 that we talked about that were really important, that's the one that really scares me the most, is the thought of him walking in free agency and getting $1 million per more, and then us having to go out and find another solid backup linebacker that's pretty good with special teams, So McDuffie's one I would, like I said, between $2.5 to $3 million per with a little extra guaranteed money just to get him back. And that really feels like that would be the right move to me. So just to kind of recap real quick, Kenny Clark, Jordan Love are the only 2 players that we are aware of that are in contract negotiations with Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball right now. So it kind of feels like they're going to try to lock those 2 guys down for a few more years. Obviously, Jordan Love probably a a 4 to 6 year deal, I would imagine. Kenny Clark, probably more of a 2 to 3 year deal, seeing that he's approaching 30 years old. Eric Stokes, we don't know. Got to kind of wait and see this year. A.J. Dillon, same thing. A.J. Dillon's probably on his way out. It sucks, but that kind of way it feels like. Corey Ballantyne, let him test the market, match what he goes out and gets, because I think he's been a solid backup as well and played pretty well when he started. Eric Wilson, we won him back for sure. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4 that I've got so far. And then if you go down to Daniel Whelan, I wouldn't mind to see him sign him to a deal. That's 5. And then Isaiah McDuffie would make 6. So out of all these free agents, I see 6 of them that I'd be like, yeah, let's bring them back on a decent deal, a normal fair market deal. But Kenny Clark, Jordan Love they're going to get paid bank. Jordan way more so than Kenny. But if Kenny's willing to take a team-friendly deal, then yeah, bring him back too. So that's kind of how the free agents sit going into training camp. So, yeah, there you go. All right, let's see what else we got here too. Yeah, Smitty said, Clayton, good thing Tim isn't on right now with that comment. LOL. Me and Tim go round and round about Quay. And I was where Tim was. Where Tim's at right now is where I was last year. I was like, man, everybody shut up. Quay's got this. And I seen last year, I'm like, man, it's hard to watch him kind of sit back and watch people run through his zones, you know? Because again, when we that's the first thing that comes to mind, and I'll just say it, you know, if you see it, you got to say it. When we talk Quay, we talk spot drop. And you can't blame spot drop. You can't blame the spot drop on the player's ability to not perform. Coach Haddad said when we had him on, spot drop doesn't mean go stand in this area and don't do anything. Spot drop means you're looking for someone to enter that zone, and when they do, you cover the player. You don't cover the area. Grass has never gained a first down. Grass has never scored a single point in a game of football, right? And what you see with Quay, especially the one that sticks out to me the most, and it was one play, but it happened numerous times throughout the year, when you would play a country quarter spot drop or even a cover 3 spot drop, and you had a 2x3 set, or in some cases a 1x3 set, meaning one receiver, 3 on the other side, one on one side and 3 on the other, or a 2x3 set where they came out like a base flex, empty look, 2 targets on the left side, 3 on the right. Quay had help on the 2x side, and it's like he didn't pre-snap, that didn't compute. So he just kind of sat in his zone rather than helping on the number 3 side, because even on the release with that number 2 on the 2x side, he kind of showed outside leverage. And it's like, Quay, you're not carrying him. What are we doing? You know? So that's where I struggle with that. Again, great dude, absolutely phenomenal, but he's just got to step up this year, man. That's a first round pick, you know? And again, what do we always say? The only thing worse than making a bad draft pick is refusing to admit you made a bad draft pick. I'm not saying Quay was a bad draft pick. I'm simply saying he's got to go out and perform this year, because if he don't, man, it's going to get hot. That seat's going to get hot. It really is. And it just, man, I just remember week 1 last year against the Bears when he got the pick 6, and it's like, let's go. Quay has arrived, because ironically, that play was spot drop. Nobody complained that play was spot drop because it was a pick 6. But you see how Quay played it. He baited the quarterback. He eased toward, from the offense's perspective, he eased toward the number 2 on the left, his right, and then baited Justin Fields to throw to the number 3 crossing or the number 2 crossing on the opposite side. Baited him, stepped in. That's how you play spot drop. You're covering players, not grass. You've got your responsibility of where your assignment is going to be specifically, right? So hopefully he rebounds. I think it would be huge, because if he rebounds, I'll tell you the thing that's going to help him the most is Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper coming in, he's going to be hungry. Like, this is a young rookie, all the physical talent. He's a Quay Walker clone. He really looks like that. Now, Quay Walker did not perform at the level in college that Edgerrin Cooper did last year. There's no arguing. There's no denying that. Like, Edgerrin Cooper last year did historic stuff from a PFF standpoint and, specific analytics. Like, this dude, he was if you were to put his tape on next to our Green Bay Packers linebacker tape, the thing that's going to pop off the screen to you is how he attacks the football. Our linebackers just didn't do that. And in some cases, it could be scheme. There's no denying that. But not every time. You can't just blame the scheme every single play. Because there was many times it's like, why are you still standing there? And that's where the start, stop, shoot really comes into play. And that's something that Edgerrin Cooper did just phenomenally at Texas A&M. I watch a lot of SEC down here where I'm at in Tennessee. And I'm telling you, that dude was start, stop, shoot. And when you see him blow up the play, you'd think, man, he must have went full sprint and just attacked the ball. He didn't. Start, get yourself in your gap, in your position, stop, come to balance, make sure you read it right, shoot your shot. Bang, right in the mouth. That's how I think him coming in, if he plays similar to how he did from an aggressive standpoint at Texas A&M, but still within the structure of Jeff Hafley's defense, I think it's going to light a fire under Quay. And I think, too, that Quay had Devondre Campbell in his ear all year long, and we all know that dude has not taken responsibility for a single thing that's went wrong in his career. Whether he was in Arizona, Atlanta, wherever, it was always someone else's fault. He comes to Green Bay, first team All-Pro. They asked him in an interview. You can pull it up. Just Google it. He said, yeah, they didn't use me right in Arizona. They didn't use me right in Atlanta. He said, someone finally used me the proper way. Guess who that someone was? It was Joe Barry. So now this year, things go south. And what did he say? They didn't use me the right way. Every time something goes wrong in your career, you blame someone else, man. That's a hard sell on me. I'm sorry. When I forget to take the trash cans down to the curb and I got to face the wrath of Mandy, I'm not sitting back going, it's somebody else's fault, but I just didn't do it. So sometimes it's intentional. Hopefully she isn't watching. But let's see. Let's hit a couple comments. We'll get out of here real quick. We got some really good stuff going on here. I wish I had someone in here with me tonight so we could actually keep up with the comments a little bit more. I apologize for that, guys. But here we go. Ron Samble earlier said, wonder if Myers will get a Runyon offer in free agency. Whew, Ron, it's possible, man. Runyon broke the bank. When I seen Runyon's contract, I went, oh, yep, okay. Hey, congratulations, John. We're not paying you that. Right? Now, maybe a scheme change for him. One thing that I have noticed about PFF and their grading system, they've always graded Green Bay's run blocking low. Now, it could be that the people at PFF, a large majority of them, don't know how to grade that zone scheme with a little duo, a little pin and pull. They mix in a lot of stuff, right? You got to really know football to know how to grade that properly. Or it could be that LaFleur's system is set up to cater to the passing game and kind of, hey, look, we'll figure out the running game. Don't worry about it. Let's really key in on our pass blocking and how that's going to fit within the structure of the scheme and the system. Could be a little bit of both, right? Not a sexy answer, but it is what it is. So maybe Runyon goes over there and he just lights it up, right? I think he went to, or was it Philly? It was either Philly, Washington, or the New York Giants, right? I think it might have been the Giants, somebody in the NFC East. But nonetheless, though, man, yeah, if Myers gets that kind of offer, hey, man, appreciate your service. Go get your money, right? Ron Samble also says Joseph is more experienced with worse results, not the answer. Completely agree. That's very well said, Ron. You explained it way better than me, buddy. You need to start a podcast. He said, Greg Joseph is more experienced with worse results, talking about with Anders, not the answer. Very good point. Coach Lynn says Sean Ryan plays a bit at center also. I've noticed, you guys know I'm not very big on Sean Ryan, but just kind of combing through Twitter and stuff, if you just search Sean Ryan's name, that dude, fans seem to love him. Like, there's a lot of people. I must be missing something there. And like you said, man, if he could play at center, who knows, right? I know he did play at center in a pinch last year, it seems like, or maybe that was camp I'm thinking about. But there is some value there. There's no doubt about that. M. Smitty says, correct, Clayton, if it was 2022 where Joseph had those game-winning kicks. So there you go. You got to go back 2 years, and that's where he had – and, again, his claim to fame was he hit some game-winning kicks. His stats still sucked. Well, I shouldn't say sucked. They weren't great. But then last year, the stats were worse than Honors, if I remember correctly. So, but yeah, so 2022 was that. Thank you for looking that up, Smitty. Appreciate you, buddy. Smitty also said, Clayton, to play devil's advocate on Quay, could the issue have been what was being asked of him not being the best compatible use of his talents? That's a great point. And not so much from the standpoint of, hey, this isn't catering to his physical ability, but mentally, right, Smitty? Like, if you are being asked to play spot drop and you are being asked to play hole, which cover one hole is where everyone's man coverage across the field. You got a single high safety, and then you got a linebacker that drops into what we call the hole in between the hashes there, right? Kind of that short hook zone. If that's what he was being asked to do, and he's a guy that likes to play really, really aggressive, like Georgia, God knows Kirby Smart, man. He turns those guys loose, and you can do that at the college level. You can't do it at the pro level. You do it at the pro level, you're going to get burned. And the name of the game in the pros is controlling the explosives, right? Passing plays of 20 yards or more, running plays of it's either 12 or 13 yards or more, something like that. But mentally, Smitty, is the first thing that came to mind as I read your comment. You know, he said, could the issue have been with Quay? What was being asked of him not being the best compatible use of his talents? I'm immediately thinking mentally, like, maybe he's sitting back there getting bored a little bit too, right? Like, man, this sucks. I want to go hit somebody. Could have been the case. I do know this. I feel really comfortable in saying if Quay has the same year this year that he had last year, then we might have missed, because Hafley and Coach Campanelli, the new linebacker coach, they're going to get coached up. We can no longer blame Joe Barry, right? So it's going to be fun to see how that linebacker room shakes out. So Coach Lynn says, put Cooper at will. I'm just saying. I love it, man. Love it. Yeah, Cooper's an athletic freak. Will, and let's hit this real quick and we'll get out since you brung that up. I think I got a screen grab. And this is the Pete Carroll system, which is the Robert Saleh defense, and kind of the blueprint and what their players are asked to do. Do I not have it anymore? There we go. Yeah, I do. I got it. This is what they're asked to do from a positional standpoint. So when Coach Lynn said put Cooper at will, I'm just saying, what does a will backer do in this defense? All right. When we look at that, let me drop that down here. So the Mike is a middle linebacker / captain of the unit and gap destroyer against the run, key, quote, read defender, both pre-snap and at the heart of zone defenses. Okay. Sam, that's the strong side linebacker that usually matches up with the tight end in the passing game, or the deep hook zone, assigned gap defender against the run that may also blitz on occasion. Many people see Sam and they think it's 1993 and they think, oh yeah, he's just an edge rusher that drops back every now and again. No, the Sam has to be prepared to cover the tight end. Now, when you go to a nickel, the Mike will now take on that role, and the will be a little more free. But here's the will backer, and Coach Lynn, again, Coach Lynn's comment, put Cooper at will, Edgerrin Cooper at will. I'm just saying, the will backer, the most athletic player in this group is generally the weak side linebacker, known for his elite open field tackling on cutbacks and his zone coverage ability in the flats. So that's the beautiful thing about the Edgerrin Cooper draft pick is, you know, when you looked at the statistics and from PFF standpoint, it was like, I think there had never been a linebacker that had led in the, or had certain levels of score at each, the run defense, the tackle grade, the pass coverage grade, all that. There was some kind of key statistic. It was like nobody's ever done that before. So that would suggest he's got all the tools to play will, right? At least the scouting report would suggest that. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, I think you're probably onto something there, Coach. If that's the case, then we're kind of narrowing it down. I feel really comfortable saying that it's either going to be Quay or it's going to be Xavier McKinney wearing the green dot. That's probably what it's going to come down to. I don't think Edgerrin Cooper is in the running to wear the green dot as a rookie, right? So me personally, if the decision was put on my shoulders, hey, who do you want wearing the green dot? This is my mindset. Quay struggled last year, right? He struggled, kind of took a little bit of a step back, in my opinion. We can agree to disagree if you guys disagree on that. He wore the green dot last year. Remember, Campbell wore it his rookie year, Quay's rookie year, and then Quay wore the green dot last year, and he took a step back. I don't think that's a coincidence. Xavier McKinney wore the green dot with the New York Giants, and he was one of the highest graded safeties in all of football. Let him wear the green dot. Let McKinney wear the green dot, get it off Quay's shoulders, right? So Quay can just be free, just focus on playing his assignment, staying schematically sound, and just being the linebacker we all hope he would be when we took him in the first round. So that's kind of how I would see that. So I would like to see in a perfect world, in my opinion, Xavier McKinney wearing the green dot, Quay Walker being the mock, Edgerrin Cooper being the wheel. That's what I want to see. Now, Isaiah McDuffie might have something to say about that. Camp battles. We talk about camp battles. We talked about the backup quarterback, Michael Pratt versus Sean Clifford. Going to be must-see TV, man. That's going to be awesome because Michael Pratt, I think he's a gamer. I think he's a baller. Number 2, wide receiver room. Man, those dudes, they're going to stretch each other so much this year because they're all so talented and so young. I feel comfortable 3, 4, maybe even 5 players. Christian Watson, not in no specific order. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, and Bo Melton. I think all 5 of those guys have a huge upside to their game. They have not played their best football yet. Romeo Doubs is closer to playing his best football, I think, than the others, much closer. But I say that because, man, they're going to stretch each other, and that receiver room is going to get better in camp. That's going to be wild. And then you go to, the offensive line, Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan versus the world. F the world, right? Jordan Morgan's going to get out there and compete for right tackle. He's going to compete for right guard. He's probably going to want to compete for left tackle, although I think Sheed might have that locked up. That's going to be a hell of a battle. Defensive line, you're going to this new 4-3 front. You're going to have basically, instead of 3 big body defensive linemen on the field in that 34 jam and a base, there's only going to be 2. That room's going to get real tight, real quick, right? Real crowded. And then, of course, linebacker, like we talk about. Linebacker's going to be phenomenal. You're going to have, I think the big thing there is Edgerrin Cooper versus Isaiah McDuffie for the second linebacker in our nickel 4-2-5. That's one of the matchups I really want to see. And if Isaiah McDuffie beats him out and you got to sit a first-round pick on nickel, do it. Put your best 11 out there, man. The window is open with Jordan Love. There's no doubt about it. So, secondary, there's going to be some good battles there too. I think they're going to just kind of hand it over to Stokes, to be honest with you. I hate that. But behind him, I wouldn't be surprised if Javon Bullard starts battling for the slot spot with Keyshawn. And I think Corey Ballantyne is going to battle Eric Stokes. It's just, again, general managers don't want to admit when they made a mistake. And if you come out of camp and go, Corey Ballantyne starting over Eric Stokes and Eric Stokes is healthy, that's a bad look, right? We all have egos, right? So, yeah, safety position, another one. It's all across the board. It'll be a hell of a camp, man. I can't believe we went an hour here tonight. I apologize for going over, gang. It's a lot of fun, though. I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. Y'all helped carry the rock tonight. Absolutely awesome. So we will be back tomorrow. The plan is I got to run in Knoxville tomorrow morning. My plan is to be back in plenty of time to do a PTA live tomorrow night. So we should be back live 7 p.m. Central tomorrow. And maybe we'll have a Jordan Love contract to talk about. Who knows? I'm kind of feeling like right now it's, the way those rumors kind of got thrown back and forth today. We talked about, on the top of the show here. It, to me, kind of feels like they are getting close, but now they're starting to push back on each other a little bit. So who knows? It might take a week or 2 into camp before it gets done. I think it is going to get done, though. I really do. So if that 5-year, $280 million report wasn't just absolutely completely BS, and I feel like the Packers would have sent someone through the media to say, no, that's a complete lie. That's fabricated. We're closer to 40 type thing. They wouldn't have said that they were the ones saying it, but someone would have spoke like that. I think that number's probably in the ballpark. So with that being the case, they got to be close. And who knows? It might be done. They might be sitting back laughing at us right now going, no, we're just going to announce it on the 22nd when Jordan runs onto the practice field. News drops, bang. Training camp kicks off. Jordan Love got a new contract. We're ready to roll. Maybe Kenny too. So that could be the case. But nonetheless, appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun. Thank y'all so much for hanging out. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. And go Pack Go.